All right, so here's our current implementation of posts component. We have these methods here, ng-on-init, create post, update post, and delete post. There is a problem with this implementation. The problem is that this implementation violates separation of concerns principle. What do I mean by that? Think of a restaurant. In a restaurant, we have different roles. We have a chef, we have a waiter or waitress, we have kitchen hands, we have a manager, and many other roles. A chef is responsible for only one thing, and that is cooking. They don't come and take orders. In object-oriented programming, we have the exact same concept. So our classes should be responsible for only one thing. A class that does too many things violates the separation of concerns principle, and such a class is hard to maintain and hard to test. Now, in this implementation, our posts component is involved in two different concerns. One is the presentation logic behind this view. For example, what should happen when we click the delete button? The item should be removed from the list, right? But the other concern that this class is involved in is getting the data. So it needs to know about this endpoint. It needs to work with the HTTP class. In update and delete methods, it needs to construct this URL. This is a different concern. In a larger and more complex application, it is likely that we're going to work with posts on different pages. So this is not the only page where we display the posts. So in those pages as well, we need to know the URL for this post's endpoint. So if in the future that URL changes for any reasons, we have to update multiple places in our code. Okay? Also, from a testing point of view, this implementation is a little bit harder to test. For example, let's imagine we want to write an automated test for this method, update post. In our unit tests, we don't want to have a live server up and running. So we want to isolate this component and only focus on the logic implemented here. In other words, we don't want to make HTTP calls to the server because this has two problems. The first problem is that if the server is not up and running, our unit tests are going to fail. The second problem is that all these HTTP calls are going to slow down our automated tests. So we want to run hundreds or thousands of automated tests in just a few seconds. And that's why we should never, ever, ever, ever call HTTP services in our automated tests. So what's the solution? The solution is to create another class, which we call a service. And this class will be purely responsible for working with our backend. So if you want to get all the posts or create a post or update or delete a post, we're going to delegate this responsibility to that class or to that service. And this will solve the two issues I told you about here. First of all the details about working with this backend is encapsulated in one place. And we can reuse this in multiple places. And also, if in the future, this detail changes, for example, the URL, we have to update only one place in our code. The second benefit is that when we want to unit test our component, we can create a fake implementation of this service that doesn't make HTTP calls to the server. And then we can run thousands of unit tests in just a few seconds. So next, I'm going to show you how to extract a service from this code.